Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
Welcome to The Ray Taylor Show, where I bring you reviews of the latest movies and TV shows, as well as classic and foreign films. I'm your host, Ray Taylor, and on this podcast, I'll be talking about all things film and television. Whether you're looking for a new show to binge or want to know if that blockbuster is worth the trip to the theater, or just want to hear my thoughts on a classic or foreign film, I've got you covered. So join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for new episodes, and let's dive into the world of film and television together. On today's episode, I am finally talking about the newest Zack Snyder film, Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child on Fire. Came out last year, 2023, end of last year. Written and directed by Zack Snyder, co-written by Johnstad and Shay Hatten. This movie stars Sofia Boutella, among many others. In this movie, when a peaceful settlement on the edge of a distant moon finds itself threatened by the armies of a tyrannical ruling force, a mysterious stranger living among its villagers becomes their best hope for survival. Overall, I had, going into this movie, a very low bar going into this movie. I think, personally, Zack Snyder is all style and no substance. An amazing visual style? Yes, he does have an amazing visual style. The man knows how to use slow motion. He knows how to make things look good on camera. But some of the worst writing in movies, in all aspects of writing from a story, narrative aspect to characters and dialogue, I'm not a fan of his movies because of that. And despite my dislike of his work, I keep watching his films, hoping he turns things around. Hoping that maybe he finds a writer to work with and he could stop writing and just direct movies. And even then, I don't have high hopes. But when studios like Netflix, previously like Warner Brothers, keep giving him all of the money to produce these big budget films, he's never going to change. And when his online simps or bots possibly wouldn't be surprised if many of the people that blindly and devoutly support his films are bots. Otherwise, regardless, the online community of his fans, when they are able to bully studios into allowing him to basically redo a movie, including adding a lot more footage, extending the runtime to a ridiculous amount, he will never change. There's no reason for him to change. Nobody is saying change, except for all the people that don't like his movies. But he's not making movies for all of us, and I don't know how the studios are making money off of him, but, he's still doing his thing. Regardless, I watch every movie with the hope that I'm going to watch a good movie. Even if I may have low expectations going into this, knowing Zack Snyder movies, I had low expectations. The things I heard didn't help to raise that bar any. Still lowered expectations. But still, I'm hoping it's good. I don't like wasting more than 2 hours of my time on a movie that's garbage. And I continue to watch his movies along with other directors and actors I don't like because I want to see the moment they create something that lives up to their hype. There are so many, not a lot, actually. There's a few. There's a few directors and a few actors that are just so overrated, and get celebrated for what they put out, and I want to understand that and hope that each new project will open a door to helping me understand that. But this movie didn't do that. Rebel Moon, Part 1, Child on Fire, did not change my opinions or thoughts on Zack Snyder. This movie is not good for a lot of the reasons that I will go into in this review. This is not a movie I would recommend to anybody watching unless they are already a Zack Snyder fan and don't know it. It actually makes me sad seeing how popular it is on Netflix. I would love to see the retention rate for the movie, to see how many people clicked play versus bounced out in the first half hour of the movie, like I did the first time I tried watching it. It also makes me sad to see so many vocal people in support of his movie, which I question the reality of these people actually being people and not just being bots. Regardless, I wasn't a fan, and I've heard that he may release an extended cut, which seems to be the Zack Snyder thing. Put out garbage and then put out an extended cut, hoping that the overlong piece of garbage gets fixed with more footage, which sometimes worked. I definitely liked Justice League, even though he didn't finish directing. That was kind of a project that got taken over. But the Snyder cut of Justice League, I did enjoy better than Justice League. However, it's still not good. Still, it's still got all the same problems. He should be doing miniseries. If he wants to do these long projects, if he can't figure out how to edit down a movie to 2 hours or less, then this trend in films being more than 2 hours long is exhausting, and the majority of films that are that runtime, the runtime isn't justified by the movie, doesn't justify the runtime, as opposed to a film like so many Indian films that are close to 3 hours long. All of those movies, in my opinion, the majority of them justify their runtimes. But then there's this trend in U.S. films where it is just so much could be cut from these movies. And it's just these directors not wanting to cut anything from their films. Not wanting to take any kind of edit job to their work, their masterpiece, as I'm sure they all think that they're creating. However, if he does do an extended cut, it will probably make for a better movie, because a lot of the stuff this movie is missing is probably, I would assume, are the things that they would put in an extended cut. But the fact that they don't have any of those elements in this movie is baffling. It's like it would be something somebody would do to sabotage a movie being released, to put out the lesser version of a movie in order to put out the extended movie late. I don't, it's like some delusional double dipping kind of scam that I don't get. I don't like. Just make a movie right the first time. It's not like it's a movie that's went to theaters. This is a Netflix movie. You don't have to worry about film stock and theaters needing to fit in enough screenings of a movie to make it profitable. Like, you can have your long movie on Netflix. They're already paying you probably way too much money already. Just make the good movie the first time. And it's not like his theatrical cuts are even theatrical cuts. Like, adding more footage to a thing isn't a director's cut. It is a new movie. It is closer to Silent Night, Deadly Night 2 than it is to a director's cut. And in addition to the writing, he needs to, as far as getting better writers, he needs to find editors who can help him tell a story in some kind of satisfying way. One positive thing about this film is that it's not ruining some other franchise, despite the fact that it feels like it is explicitly copying another franchise and mixing in kind of elements from other movies. It feels like I'll get into it, but this is a mess. This movie is a mess. Let's pause for a minute here. To all the art enthusiasts and lovers of unique creative expression listening in, I have a real treat for you. The Many Faces is a series that you simply cannot miss. These are not just any paintings. They're a journey into a world of abstract and surreal art, each piece meticulously crafted with ink on paper, showcasing a face with its own unique story. This series is a labor of love with new, breathtaking pieces unveiled every single day, starting at just $20 for a 4x6 painting. These artworks offer you the chance to own something truly special, with larger sizes available for those who want to make a bolder statement. Picture an original, emotion-rich artwork from the Many Faces adorning your favorite room. Intrigued? Visit InspiredDisorder.com and choose a piece that speaks to you. It's more than art. It's a piece of a larger narrative waiting to be shared. Now let's jump back into the excitement of our show. So this movie is basically Star Wars. Big part of it is Star Wars. Plus Seven Samurai. Plus Guardians of the Galaxy. But a big aspect of it is Bill and Ted's. Basically, this is Star Wars meets Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Except all of those movies are actually good and tell a compelling story, where this movie is just like, let's combine these elements because those are things people like and are well regarded. So thus adding those things will make this good and well regarded. But despite that, despite the blatant copying of other works, which it's one thing to be inspired by other works. It's one thing to see what Quentin Tarantino does with his films. It's another thing to see what Zack Snyder does in this film, which is just like this bizarro world Star Wars movie. But the writing is bad. The dialogue is bad. Actually, the dialogue is mostly non-existent. This movie is full of moments and monologues. The dialogue is absent, and one of the many issues I have from this. You have characters just telling each other their character's backstory in long extended monologues with sometimes, most of the time, there's a few exceptions to this, but while these characters are sitting down, instead of having a conversation like normal human beings do, whenever you see two characters in a scene together, one of those characters is going to go on a long monologue about who they are and where they're from, and we may most likely see visuals of the story they're telling shown in a slow motion montage kind of visual style. While, the other times we're just watching a character give this basic monologue, this exposition of their character. No real human interactions. Aside from the villains, there's a few interactions. There's apparently he's really good at writing villains and giving villains kind of fleshing out their characteristics. But when it comes to the heroes, when it comes to the protagonists of this film, it is empty. It is void. There is nothingness. But to try and be positive, I do like the character design. Obviously, it looks like Star Wars. Very much Star Wars characters are in this movie. I don't know if they're actual Star Wars characters, but they look like they should be in a Star Wars movie. So I do like the visual, the creature design. And what I would say, this is like uh, whatever a Star Wars movie would be if you were in an alternate universe, right? If you were in an alternate reality where all of the franchises we know today in this reality no longer exist, but in this alternate reality, there's kind of like the red box, bootleg equivalent of what we're used to, right? Slightly off. This is the Star Wars movie in that alternate universe. But I would say, to give Zack Snyder credit, visually, I would say much better than most Star Wars movies. Visually, I say. Better action than most Star Wars movies, I would say. I like the fact that they have lightsabers and laser guns. The way they're changed in this, the lightsabers smoke for some reason and look more like swords, but they are glowing swords, but that smoke look cool. And then their guns that fire lasers look a little bit beefier. They're more hefty guns. I have no idea why a laser gun would recoil when you shoot it. Guns recoil because there's an explosion going on and you're firing a bullet, you're firing mass out of this thing. And the explosion is what causes that bullet to fly out. Whereas lasers, it's not like, imagine turning a flashlight on and it having recoil. That's just how stupid, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. It's cool. They look cool. It looks like they're shooting bullets, but the lasers are coming out. So it's like, they kind of like have the look and feel and sound of guns, but lasers come out. I don't know. It's a little bit different, a little bit cooler than, the Star Wars, since that's the exact thing that it's replicating. But instead of making me excited to watch the follow-up to this movie, it really kind of just makes me want to go back and rewatch all the Star Wars movies, which I will do at some point in order to rank them. It's just I know the Star Wars franchise, I mostly don't like the movies. The majority of movies in that franchise I'm not a big fan of. But it will be nice to go through and rewatch that franchise and maybe get a different perspective on it, watching them all together. But yeah, so that's what this movie kind of makes me want to do, watch a completely other franchise of movies. But the thing that this movie doesn't do that the Star Wars franchise is amazing at, most successful franchises for that matter are really good at, are the iconic characters. But in this movie, there are no iconic characters. I mean, you could say that Kora is an iconic character, but aside from looking at IMDb and seeing her name as Kora, I don't know any of the names of any of the characters in this movie. We don't get to know any of them, even though some of them, we get to listen to them telling a backstory. We get some of Kora's backstory as this like warrior. We don't know any of these characters as they're being collected. And we never see these characters interact with each other. There's no human interaction between them. It's all scene, things happen, maybe a monologue, action sequence, go to another location, scene. Like, it's just, there's no like back and forth. There's no dialogue. There's no conversations. There's no way to organically get to know any of these characters in any meaningful way. And this movie is supposed to be like some epic space journey, but with no connective tissue between the locations that they go to, right? It's a collection of scenes and new places introducing new characters, but we know nothing of these places or these characters. I'm also curious why he is so obsessed with making spaceships look like dicks in his movies. And in this movie, he makes wormholes look like vaginas. Like, Zack Snyder is like, makes movies for bro dudes. He makes movies for immature, like college age frat guys. That, like, he puts the dicks and the pussies on screen, along with, like, a lot of homoerotic imagery that goes back through all of his. He's always got men who are muscular and cut and always making poses. Like, all of the times you see dudes with their shirts off or wearing tank tops, they're always, like, almost giving, like, bodybuilder poses in these scenes. It's just, the elements that are in a Zack Snyder film are very interesting. There's always penis-shaped ships. Now we're seeing vagina-shaped black holes. All the men are ripped and half naked and posing. This is very much a male-gazy film. As much as, you know, directors putting gorgeous women wearing very little clothes in order to just see gorgeous women and be the female gaze type of movies. This is very much the male gaze of movies. And it's so interesting to see the bro dudes fall in love with these movies. Same thing happened in 300. Same thing with Man of Steel. Like, all of these movies are, like, made for, like, bro dudes. These movies are made for dudes that self-identify as alpha males, right? That put in their social media profiles alpha male, right? Maybe they have pictures of themselves shooting guns. Maybe they have American flags on their hats and Punisher logos on their trucks that are lifted, right? But they love to see these half-naked, gorgeous men in Zack Snyder movies. But again, it's all visuals. All of those things in Zack Snyder films are visuals. They're not story. There's no story, no compelling story. I don't remember, like, aside from having to look down at my screen to see the names of these characters, I don't remember a single character. I remember, like, I can see that, like, I visually remember the character. Like, Kora character is interesting. I mean, we're introduced to her plowing a field for some reason. And we see her kick ass throughout this movie. But she's not like a Han Solo or a princess or what the characters from which I'm blanking on all the characters from Star Wars. But, you know, the memorable characters, R2-D2, C-3PO, Chewie, fucking Luke Skywalker, his sister that I'm blanking on her name. But, like, there's none of those here. There should be. Oh, Titus. Oh, Gunner. Oh, yeah, Atticus Noble. Oh, Darian Bloodaxe. Kai or Cal. No, Kai. Kai is Han Solo. No, there's none of that. Time for a quick pause from our episode today. Listeners, let's envision a unique addition to your world of art. Picture an artwork that's not just a feast for the eyes, but a rare gem in itself. Enter the realm of the many faces, available now as exquisite limited edition prints. These artworks aren't just visually appealing, they capture a blend of abstract and surreal art, each telling its own silent yet profound story. What sets these prints apart? I personally hand sign and number each one, ensuring that you hold a piece of exclusive artistry. And here's the great news. Luxury doesn't have to be unattainable. With prices starting at just $5 for a 4x6 print. It's art made accessible for every budget and every wall. So, art lovers, collectors, and everyone in between, seize this opportunity. Add a touch of sophistication and uniqueness to your space. Visit InspiredDisorder.com now to claim your piece of this limited edition series. Now, back to more of what you love in our show. But I do want to talk about spoilers. I want to talk about specifics in this film. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go check out this 2-hour it's not that long, over 2 hours. 2 hours, 13 minutes. Feels a lot longer. But check it out and come back. And if you don't mind, you just want to hear me talk shit about this movie in detail, then stick around. Spoiler warning from here on out. So, of course, this movie opens with an explosion and a penis-like ship traveling through a wormhole that looks like a space vagina. You also get voiceover that seems like it would be instead of the Star Wars opening crawl, where the audience has to read words, Zack Snyder's audience apparently unable to read words. And, of course, Zack Snyder not wanting his movie, I'm sure, to seem exactly like a Star Wars movie. So replacing words, written words, with a voiceover, we get a voiceover. Kind of setting everything up, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to pay attention to that if you don't want. Everything looks like it's a studio set. Like, when they show this planet and you see Kora plowing the fields, it looks like they're on a giant studio set, and then there's a green screen, or possibly the new thing that they're using. I forget what the new thing. They're like giant screens, like giant LED screens that instead of using green screen, you can actually see the background. This giant video background. I forget what that new technology is called, but that's what it looks like. It looks like they're on a set. Doesn't look like they're on any location anywhere. It's just studio set. Doesn't make sense why the tiniest woman in this village is the one plowing the field. Obviously, she's a badass, but doesn't make any sense. And especially the fact that she goes from plowing a field to this gathering that everybody in the village is having. And in that moment, she decides to change into a dress. So she's a woman who likes to kick ass, but make sure that she's dressed, she's dressed as a woman inside. She wants to make sure she's wearing a sundress. Because you can't have a woman just wearing the overalls or whatever it is she was wearing while she's plowing the field. Like all the other characters are just wearing the thing that they wear previous to this gathering, but she has to change into a dress. I don't know. It takes a while before we get to the first action scene, but it's a good one. The action scenes are pretty good in this. You get to see her kicking ass in slow motion. Interesting slow motion stuff. You have, it's the fascists against the humble farmers. And there's a scene, the fascists are in town and they're taking over, they're commandeering this farm land, which is like all of these planets could all be, all these locations that they go to in this movie could all be on the same planet. Because you go to a planet, imagine Earth being a planet of all farmers. It would make no sense. If you have a planet of people, then there's going to be some farmers, there's going to be some artists, there's going to be some people that make the cars, there's going to be some people that make the food, that somebody that that's the military. There's all of these aspects to a world. Not just oh, this is the farm world. Oh, this is the rebellion world. Oh, this is this kind of world. I don't know. It's like, oh, this is the desert world. It's like we have desert and forests and mountains and oceans, all that stuff on one single world. Ice, all that stuff. But you have to go to an ice world. It's just, I don't know. That's something sci-fi movies in general tend to have, like this narrow scope of these worlds that they go to. But the fascists that take over this farming world, they want to rape one of the girls. And of course, like this is like the disgusting nature of these evil fascists in the opening of this movie is like the most compelling writing that happens in this entire movie, and it's for the most despicable and disgusting people. So I don't know what that says about Zack Snyder, that he is so good at writing for disgusting and horrible people, and for everybody else it is long extended monologues. But it is what it is. But them wanting to rape this girl is what is the catalyst for things changing, where you have this robot that disappears for the rest of the movie, and of course is going to be coming back, but this robot saves this girl because, of course, they had a moment where the robot gave a monologue to this girl telling you where the robot was from. And the idea is, okay, we killed these military people for this fascist overlord government that wants to take over everything. So now there's going to be backlash. There's going to be an invasion. There's going to be a retaliation. So they have to go. This is the Seven Samurai. They've got to go to all the other villages that exist only on different planets to get warriors to come back and help them fight against an army, right? They need a collection of badasses to come back and fight against an entire army. Which that doesn't make sense either. So they set off on this journey to get help, right, now that they killed these guys. And as they are on this journey, things just look like they're on sets again, studio sets. Nothing feels like we are even outside, let alone on another world. Like everything feels like they are in a controlled studio environment. A lot of characters telling stories to each other, some reenactments. They meet the Han Solo guy, Kai, played by Charlie Hunnam. Which I like Charlie Hunnam. He's okay. Like, okay, he's doing the he's a pilot with a fast ship. He's kind of a criminal. Very much the Han Solo character. And of course, the evil general, and is super into tentacles, very sexually into tentacles apparently, which that scene is kind of bad CG. Aside from the sets that they are filming on that look like sets, that look bad, the CG tentacles don't look that great either. And of course, they effortlessly find all of these people that they need to find. This is the moment. So much of this movie is Bill and Ted's, right? Except for with Bill and Ted, it makes sense, and they do it better, right? Bill and Ted, they get a telephone booth that's a time machine. They have a book of all the different times they can go to. They type in the code. They go to that time. They need to do a history presentation, so they go and they take all of the history people throughout time, right? In this movie, it is them in a spaceship, a fast spaceship, so they're able to travel to these worlds really quick, and they are just going to effortlessly collect all of these badasses to help fight an army. And one of the first places they effortlessly go to, they find what looks like Matthew McConaughey in blackface. This is a melanated McConaughey. He looks like a young Matthew McConaughey from many angles, which is strange. Like, at first, I thought it was an aged-down Matthew McConaughey. Like, super tanned. Super tanned. But it's not. And of course, they don't have any money. He's like a slave, so they don't have money to free him, to buy him. So out of nowhere, this slave owner's like, oh, I'll gamble you. I like gambling. Let's gamble. So the gamble is like, McConaughey's got to go break this giant hawk creature, right? I don't know what. Griffin? Maybe it's a griffin. Kind of has four, almost like a bear's body, but then like the head of like an eagle or whatever. Melanated McConaughey's got to go break this giant hawk. Or if he does, then he will go free. If he doesn't, they're all going to be slaves, which is just stupid. Which just means that he could have been freed at any time, really, if that's all he had to do. And of course, he's the Griffin Whisperer. Like he effortlessly breaks this animal. Not only breaks this animal, but also makes it so the animal is only obedient to him. And in this process of breaking it, Zack Snyder implements his Avatar, the James Cameron Avatar movie reference, with this guy jumping off a cliff in slow-mo, in the Zack Snyder slow-mo. You know, the sun, this guy floating through the air as he's about to jump onto this griffin, eclipsing the sun that's in the background. Right, it's kind of a beautiful scene, this slow-mo scene, as Zack Snyder is the only thing he's good at doing is these slow-mo scenes. Some action scenes are good, too. When he jumps on this griffin and then flies it back. Like, all of a sudden, him and the griffin are good buddies. And then when they fly back, you have Kora kind of grazing the underside of the wing of this creature. Like, just all of these, like, in slow-mo. He's good at these slow-motion moments. So, of course, they leave with melanated McConaughey, and instantly the slave owner tries to jump on this griffin and, of course, gets slammed. So, instantly doesn't work. Like, the fact that he would let him go before testing that this griffin is actually quote-unquote, broken and trained is stupid. But they leave. And as she leaves, she asks the Han Solo character if he happens to know of anybody else. And he's like, yeah, I got a couple guys that we can go to. So they no research needed. They found a guy who's got not only a fast ship that will get them there, but also knows where they all are. Now, yes, for those that have seen this movie, that aspect of this movie, why Kai knows where everybody is, definitely gets explained at the end. But while you're watching the movie, it's stupid. It's stupid. Like, the fact that the end of this is him being a double cross and knowing the intention of why he was able to get everybody seems like a bit of writing to make up for the fact that they so effortlessly got everybody. And even still doesn't make sense. So they leave. So next is an Asian woman who's has to fight a spider for some reason. And the spider has a child in its arms for some, like, they go to another place, and it's just like these people, Kora and Kai and melanated McConaughey, they're just chilling, watching, spectating as the person that they need to get, which during the fight it's unclear which one of those three characters is actually being pursued. Is it the woman fighting the giant spider? Is it the giant spider? Or is it the girl that the spider lady is holding? No idea. No idea why she is wanted or what she can contribute. And they're just like watching. They're just spectating this whole thing. Watching this person that they're there to, watch. They're there to watch this person do an impressive thing, like they watch melanated McConaughey do an impressive thing. They show up, they find the person effortlessly, they watch that person do an impressive thing, and then they go. Very much Bill and Ted, plucking people from history. We don't, except for these aren't historical characters, so we don't know anything about them, unlike the Bill and Ted movie, where we kind of know Napoleon, Genghis Khan, Socrates. Come on. The action, however, some great moments in the action, right? Finally, there is a little bit of interaction on the ships on the way to the next place. That is the aspect of this movie that I think they'll add in, if there is an extended cut, is showing these people on the trip to the next place, which would allow for these people to have interactions inside the ship and to get to know these people a little bit more organically than just sitting two characters down where one is delivering a monologue at the other one. And that's what happens. The interaction on the ship is Kora sitting down to tell Kai her backstory, which happens twice. She doesn't finish, so she has to go back to it. And then they get to the rebel planet, which the way the rebels speak is like, it feels like they're desperately trying to be profound with everything they say, which ultimately feels like Zack Snyder was trying to write profound words for these people. Like, he felt like that was going to be profound. These rebels are going to say things in like this beautiful way that's going to be so impactful, but it just feels so out of place. Just doesn't feel true. And then you have the people, like the rebels, are like, I don't know if I want to do this, but then slowly they come forward to volunteer to fight. And then the score of this movie is desperately trying to make you feel emotional, right? It's trying to make you feel like that moment in the Avengers movie when all of the different people are showing up through portals to help fight against the big bad guy in the last movie, right? Except for it's his people, a group of rebels we know nothing about, people stepping forward we don't know anything, we'll never know anything about, and we're supposed to feel like emotional that these no-name people that are probably just going to get killed anyway are stepping forward to join this thing based on nothing. And then there's the double cross with Han Solo, but so unearned, right? It's a good idea, it's an interesting idea, him using her mission to collect all these people for bounties, which explains why he was able to knew where they all were. My thing is, all of these people are the elite of the elite, these people that are being brought in to help fight. Why is it that the elite of the elite aren't questioning why this guy Kai knows exactly where to find them? Why aren't these people who are the elite of the elite unable to identify who might be a bounty hunter? It's just so unearned. And of course, despite the fact that they're all like get caught in these like scorpion prison things that grab them and they can't get out, when they're able to get out, kind of cool, they're able to escape. The final battle and her facing off against the evil general was very underwhelming. His resurrection at the end was cool visually, very cool visually, but just more talking from the boss and the dad, who we find is the dad of Kora. or the boss and is talking to Kora's dad. Like it sets up for like, oh, there's even more to this story. There's even more characters that we don't know about. And maybe this movie suffers from the fact that it's a part one. I said this on the most recent Mission Impossible movie I watched. I've mentioned this in comparison to the second Matrix film. All of these movies that are coming out as part ones, the Spider-Verse movie is another one. I hate it. This one has at least kind of an ending, right? They fight off against all of these people that have been collected that we don't know anything about. They're fighting, and she has a one-on-one battle against the big bad, but he's not the big bad, right? It's just, and it doesn't even matter, like they kill him, but they just bring him back anyway. So it's like, I don't know. It's just so unearned. Will I watch part two? Sadly, I might watch part two. Will I watch a director's cut if there is one? I will probably, I'll watch it before watching number two. Like, instead of rewatching this movie to prepare for part two and just watching the director's cut, I might do that. But it'll be like a background thing. I'm not going to review it. I'm not going to focus on it. I'm not going to study it. But I'll put it on in the background. I'll probably put it on while I work before watching this part two. Would I be sad or even notice if this film completely disappeared? If there was never a part two, if this movie was treated the way movies are treated by the Warner Brothers Discovery CEO, who just deletes shit, who will fully fund, produce, and then can a movie right before it gets released for no real reason. If Netflix did that to this movie, I wouldn't notice. I wouldn't care. In a few years, I'd be like, hey, wait, weren't they going to do, wasn't there that, remember that Zack Snyder Star Wars movie? Wasn't that like a part one? Whatever happened to that? Right? Meanwhile, Zack Snyder's doing Guardians of the Gahul part two. I'm like, wait a minute, wasn't he going to do another sequel? But like I said, all style, no substance. You have attractive people in attractive settings that look like sets in a studio, but it's not enough. It's not enough. I need to care about these characters. I need to see them interact with each other. I want to see some semblance of reality in these movies. Real conversations, not just one-sided monologues with slow-mo montage visuals. I do love the slow-mo and the visuals, don't get me wrong, and the action, but the writing is just garbage. I'm just hungry for original stories that aren't based on IP. Yet this film is such a copy of Star Wars and Seven Samurai. It doesn't feel like it's an original story at all. It feels like a Redbox bootleg somehow got a massive budget. I just hope the world wakes up to the fact that Zack Snyder is a bad director and even worse writer, right? He needs to work with an editor who can help him release a movie that's under 2 hours, that doesn't require a director's cut to make up for the bad first attempt. And work with writers. He needs to step away from the writer's room. This had 3 writers on it. Zack Snyder and 2 other people. Zack Snyder needs to not be in that room. He needs to hire people that write badass scripts, and he needs to stay out. Stay out. And then he needs to work with an editor that's not afraid to cut out some of this slow-mo stuff in order to tell some kind of story. Or Netflix needs to give him money to do a miniseries. Let him do his 6-hour-long bullshit and then chop it up into episodes. This easily could have been a series. And each episode in the series is them going to collect a new person. And then the series ends with those new people after we've gotten to know them over the course of a miniseries. We are surprised when Kai is a two-timer, and we rejoice and celebrate when these characters that we've come to know and love seemingly defeat the bad guys. But we don't get any of that in this movie. But what we do get from this podcast is my thanks to all of you for tuning in to the Ray Taylor Show, and that I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child on Fire, which is, there's no children in this movie, let alone children who are literally or metaphorically on fire. But don't forget to tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for more movie and TV show reviews. And join the conversation by leaving a comment or rating on your favorite podcast platform or over on youtube.com/inspired disorder, where these are all available in video form. Until next time, enjoy better shows. Subscribe to The Ray Taylor Show on YouTube and everywhere podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Purchase Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.